So in lieu of this, I've actually wanted to bring up another subject. How about we talk about the environment in Georgia, our current environment.
Like that environment?
Yeah. Yeah, the environment's going on. I'd just like to talk about like not only the environment here in Georgia, but maybe the environment in the world. Maybe how like pollution's affecting us. Maybe climate change, why we're somehow still getting cold weather, even though they're preaching about global warming getting worse. And just what we could, probably maybe some things we could do to prevent it, like maybe clean up or something. I'm saving the big subject for next week. That's going to be the
gun control, right?
Yeah, gun control.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Number 3.
It's like their time.
Number 3. Yeah, there is number 3.
Yeah. Well, I know China was known for having the most pollution, air pollution.
It's Iran.
Yeah, but
well, it's a
then,
city in Iran that has the most pollution.
Yeah.
That has like smog covers almost every inch of that city every morning.
Yeah.
China as a country has the most pollution.
Yeah, but I've heard they're doing like a lot right now to like take it down now, the pollution, is because how much attention they were getting because of it.
Well, it's like all the countries like, hey, you're kind of screwing everyone over here. Can you fix it?
Yeah.
And that's why they also released the one-child rule, and now how it's become two-child rule again, like that whole law over there. And relating it back to the U.S., I feel this goes back to like overpopulation and all that. I feel like we don't necessarily have as much of that necessarily, but then you get into these cities and yeah, they're definitely overpopulated, and you see all these factories being run and all this smoke going up in the city air. And I'm glad that they started releasing these new vehicles that are not powered by gasoline and don't harm the environment and don't release those harmful chemicals, which are becoming more and more popular, which is great, I think. We need more of that substantially over the next few years. It's just, you got to take into account that there's a lot of people coming over here too as well, and so they also contribute to this factor and all that stuff. So I feel like it has become a lot worse, and that's why we're seeing a lot of these climate changes essentially, because we are a driving force throughout the entire globe. We kind of make, I don't want to say we make the weather change, but in a sense we've created acid rain now, harmful chemicals being in the air. That's why you see on tombstones, a lot of them wither away so quickly now, that you see them, they're just warping just because of this acid rain.
Most of the Civil War ones are gone.
Exactly. It's crazy to see. It's just sad. I feel like there needs to be almost a little bit more regulation in that department of how much these chemicals can be released into the atmosphere, and so we can all live, because we're ultimately going to be the death of ourselves if we don't keep track of all of our things. That's what I kind of think.
Do you have any data or anything like on, well, if you think this is bad, how bad was it to start?
How bad was it to start? Like over the years, it's become worse just because we've grown more as a
Acid
nation.
rain is actually isn't as bad anymore.
Yeah.
It's because they have more filters in their smokestacks.
Yeah.
But we definitely have a really high carbon output from the vehicles that we drive. And I'm pretty sure like America is the worst in terms of pollution per person. Per person. We don't have nearly the population of China, but we produce we have a higher carbon output per person than like any other country. So I think, having alternative fuel vehicles, looking more into renewable fuels, something else that
How do you get the cost down?
you would have to have government funding subsidizing it.
And recycle.
Just kind of like what they've already been doing anyway. Like right now, the government funds a lot of biotechnical research for alternative fuels now, and it's just a really expensive thing to do. I mean, it's not a snap of a finger and then we're
Well, that's the reason why they're not changing, because it's expensive. It's not easy. So.
And you have money in the pockets of oil fields companies that are, funding these political figures in our government that are making it harder for them to support, alternative fuel stuff like that. I mean, there is that, but
And it's better for car manufacturers too. They make more money, bigger profit if they use petroleum. So you kind of change to, I guess, energy cars or whatever. I feel like
it costs more money to research. Changing over to an electric car, that's a whole new engine, a whole new type of car. But if you stick to the fuel-based engine, it's kind of the same thing. A lot of alternative fuels now, you don't have to change the engine. Like ethanol, it's a little bit less efficient, but there's no changing that has to be done inside the engine, so it's not really going to cost them that much, which is nice. But when you switch to electric, it's a totally different thing. And then on top of that, you don't even know if the electricity that you're getting from your car is actually clean. What if the energy that you're getting to fuel your car with electricity is coming from a coal stack? You're still emitting, pollution into the atmosphere. So,
But it's less, right?
it's controlled. It's a point source. Whenever it's your car, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So you can limit it better if it comes from a coal stack, but it's still being emitted. So you still have that problem. It's still there.
Do you think government funding is going to go down, considering that the president doesn't believe in global warming?
Yeah,
It
he
probably
made
already
he made a regulation. I was reading about it actually, how since he was going to lessen the restrictions on these companies and on these factories so they can emit more harmful chemicals. Yeah, that's what. Yeah. It brings more brings more revenue for the U.S. and it does help our stimulate our economy. But then there's always going to be repercussions for that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the first time we industrialized, or Europe did. Like, we industrialized so much, but they created a lot of pollution with their coal, sand, all that stuff. So I guess we might see something similar, right, here in the U.S.
And I mean, if you think about it, like the U.S. citizens are kind of like willing to accept like these electric cars and stuff. So, I mean, like I see Tesla, right? I see Tesla,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like the demand for them is so high, but the supply is so little, just because it's so expensive, I guess, for the technology. But like people are like willing to accept this. It's just, I guess, the funding that goes into it.
I don't know about that. I mean, a lot of people are just saying that oh my gosh, the cars are too slow. I keep seeing all my Indian neighbors going around with them.
Well, the Teslas are really fast
Yeah.
cars, but
But
they're
they're expensive.
expensive.
Yeah.
They are creating one, and I think it already sold out like within like the first day.
It's like $30,000.
Yeah, it's a 30,000. It's like an actual like middle class American car, and it like sold out immediately. And I know like the Nissan Leaf and like the Chevy Volt and stuff like that. Those are like their first attempts into electric vehicles. But you also have hybrid. I mean, it still uses fuel, but it's less in a sense because it's more fuel efficient, which is nice.
Yeah, I feel like we're definitely seeing a push for hybrid cars at least.
So I'd like to ask you guys on something.
Yeah.
Well, something important. Okay, so we all know that China is the country with the most pollution in an urban area. It has the most pollution out of any other country in the world by a long shot. But what do you guys think? What country do you guys think has the least pollution?
Sweden.
I guess it's probably something
Denmark
like
or
Sweden.
One of the Scandinavian.
I can see Denmark actually.
Norway.
Not Asia.
Oh, you know what?
they're
It's-
US,
Oh,
Maybe
no,
in
it's
Africa,
Africa.
actually.
Antarctica, yeah.
I mean, if you think about it,
That probably makes sense.
It's somewhere in Africa.
I would say just, it's a completely undeveloped nation, then if you find an undeveloped nation, then what's there to emit any pollution at all?
Just like
I
burning
mean, it's
fires.
not realistic for us, but.
Well, yeah, not for us, but like if you were to look somewhere in Africa or
Yeah.
something like that, there might be an undeveloped nation there.
Well, it's actually by looking at the
See,
statistics.
he knew the whole time,
Yeah.
That's why I asked it. If I didn't know, why would I ask it? But
so that you could know the answer. That's why,
well,
that's why people ask.
I wanted to
questions.
ask what you guys thought. But the country with the least pollution in an urban area is
In an
Australia.
urban area.
Oh, really?
What urban area is it?
Australia. It says Australia is my city.
Yeah.
The only runner-up to it is the runner-ups are Brunei, New Zealand, Estonia, Finland, Canada, Iceland, and Sweden. Australia has an average PM of 2.5 average PM 2.5 concentration of 5.7, and its runner-up Brunei has 6.6.
Is it parts per million? Is that what?
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's for carbon? Or is it just
Yeah,
like
carbon.
pollution?
pollution in general.
It's just like.
They have the least amount of pollution out of any other place in the world. That's probably why we have all the big
Any
fires.
other place or any other urbanized place?
Any other urbanized place.
There you go.
But you still have Brunei in Estonia.
I wonder what it would be if you looked at rural areas.
Probably because most of it's just wilderness. Most of Australia is wilderness. Usually the urban areas you see are just like real small. The outback.
Well, yeah, isn't like 10% of Australia actually sit like urban, and like about 90% live within the cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, most of it's just the outback. They don't want to deal with all the
Aborigines.
yes.
Yeah. Fucking fight. Kangaroos.
But honestly, I was expecting African countries, African or Middle Eastern countries.
Like
Then again,
Jamaica
it's talking
too.
about urban
Well, if you're
areas,
looking
though.
at urban areas, then you're not going to find many African countries there.
But and if they are, they're probably pretty high pollution. That's the thing.
But probably because they have high carbon levels.
Like wherever there is urban areas there,
Or more.
like in South Africa.
Yeah.
I guess you can also rule out Middle Eastern countries because of all the wars that's going on there. Like the war, a lot of war produces like more carbon than an urban area,
Well,
even
and,
if it's short.
well, in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, oil is like their main export.
Oil.
So that means a lot of that.
Can I ask you a question? So is the only pollutant carbon?
Nope. There's carbon
Nitrous
dioxide.
oxide,
What's another major
sulfates.
pollutant? Huh?
Sulfur.
Sulfur? Okay, that's another one.
Nitrous
What
oxide.
I think is number 2, methane. Now, where does methane come from? I'm leading up to a
Trash.
question. Where does methane come from? Huh? Trash.
Trash.
But you can burn it.
But where else?
Cows.
Midwest.
Guys,
Not Midwest, rural. You're talking about African countries, anything with large animal populations produce a lot of methane gas.
so we should kill sound pollution. But one of the most debated topics regarding the environment and pollution would be Trump wanting to get the United States out of the Paris Climate Accord, which I guess is fairly new. Is the accord fairly new in itself, and the United States has only been in it for Bush's administration?
Oh, I thought it was
Yeah, I thought it was a.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Obama's.
Obama did?
think so.
In 2010, it was.
But what?
We were alive.
Yeah.
But what is the Paris Climate Accord? Like, what does it do? Like, what makes it what it is?
It sets goals for countries to reduce their carbon emissions
Yeah, carbon footprint.
or pollution. And
So that their countries
yeah,
be as beautiful as the Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
and of course,
Yeah.
Oh,
and of course, some of it's pretty hard. Like they have like years, like they have like a certain year, and they need to reduce that. But is it possible to do it? Who knows?
Why would you think that we would leave it?
Trump said it was unfair.
What?
Trump said it was unfair.
But yeah,
Yeah, but why do you think he says it's unfair? Like, what is his reasoning for doing that?
Well, if
It would be
you
like because he's saying it's like how the United States is funding most of the UN projects.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into. This U.S. and Britain, I think it's not going
The U.S. and Britain are funding most of it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into. And so we're basically not going to, economically, the U.S. isn't going to benefit out of it.
Was Trump like an isolationist then?
Well, he's technically no. He just wants the other countries to pay their fair share for the accord. He doesn't want the United States to be its main producer. He wants every country to benefit equally, and the only way they'll do that is if they pay for it equally. Just like how they want, like how he's saying this for multiple other things, like NATO, for the UN, for what else?
Paris too.
Yeah,
That's one of the
Paris Climate Accord, and that's why he wants to get out of it because the United States is paying.
Well, yeah, he wants to get out as long as it's unfair for the U.S. He's willing to go back to it if he thinks it's fair.
If he thinks it's fair for the U.S.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's not for the world.
The reason
Yeah.
why it's unfair is because when you reduce your carbon emissions, you're going to be limiting, certain industries out there because they're going to have to spend millions of dollars in investing in technology to limit that. With coal companies and stuff like that, putting smokestacks that are able to filter out a lot of those harmful chemicals is not something cheap. So and then car companies are going to have to make cars that are more fuel efficient. That's a lot of money, and that can
way he feels like will curb the economy in a negative way. That's why he doesn't want to do that. That's understandable, but then again, you have to look at long-term and short-term costs for doing something like that.
So do you think we should get out? Do you think we should get out, or do you think we should stay?
Well, we're already out, but we're not out
Well, we're not
until
technically
2020.
not out yet. We're going to be officially out on the 2020.
But there's no, and on top of that, there's no like enforcer of it. There's nothing that says like, I don't think anything horrible happens to you if you don't meet your goals. It's just kind of like, oh, you didn't meet your goal.
Well, this is based off of reciprocity. Countries working together for a cause and punishing those that don't follow it.
So yeah, if the U.S. doesn't do it, then it's just going to encourage other people to not do it.
It's just going to ruin our reputation. More like.
I think the problem with the U.S. pulling out is that someone said, I forgot, we're kind of like role models. We lead a lot of other countries. So us pulling out kind of gives way for other countries to be able to pull out too. They did it, why can't we? Type of thing.
Well, so far only 2 of them are not even going to be part of it. I think it's the United States and Zimbabwe,
I think so.
or is it Zambia?
I don't
A lot of Z's
Yeah.
in Africa. And the funny thing is, China has been saying that they weren't going to do certain emissions. Like they aren't going to do their goal because they are part of I think they are part of the Paris Climate Accord.
What?
Is China part of the Paris Climate Accord?
I thought so.
We would know.
But they're disagreeing with the carbon emissions that the Accord wants them to reduce. Because it would involve them taking down some of their factories. And China needs that to keep their economy.
They are investing in a lot of green energy, though. They've shown a lot of improvement.
Well, I guess they're just refusing it just until they can get their green sources up and running. Like we won't reduce it until we're finished with it. Like kind of postpone.
Right now, I'm seeing that the U.S. is the only that hasn't signed.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought there was a second one that wasn't going to do it, but they weren't going to do it because it wouldn't help them
It was Syria at first, but they signed it November 7th
last year.
Last year.
Yeah, we read an article.
I'm sure chemical
Yeah.
attacks are like perfectly within the ranges of that climate accord.
Oh, definitely. Let's just bomb their chemical factories. That's going to help. What would you guys say is the current environmental climate here in Georgia compared to other states?
Cold.
Cold. Because last year it was hot.
Yeah, this time last year was
Wasn't
hot.
last year like El Nino or something like that?
Last year,
That
yeah.
was 2014. 2014 was El Nino.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Where?
2014.
Yeah, that's why it didn't snow. That's why it was hot in the winter then. But now it's for some reason cold, like we're hitting a constant cold front.
Are you want an actual spring for once?
Yeah.
Usually our springs here are like